Okay, so I've already opened up a new Power App here, Canvas app more specifically, and now we'll just go through the steps of building out the app that Jason described. So the first thing that we're going to do is add the data that we need for the app. So these would be the connectors that Jason was referring to. All of this is already built in Dataverse. So there's already an existing table that has been created to store all of this data. So I will go ahead and add the idea submission table, and I will also add the users table so that we can tie the person who is submitting the idea in the app to a user in Dataverse. Okay. So the first thing that we need to do is make sure that our users can submit an idea. So I'm going to use this screen for that. So we'll just call this the submission screen. And let's go ahead and do another screen. Start. We'll just call our home screen. For the submission screen, for actually submitting an idea, we're going to add a edit form component. And we'll just make it that big. Okay. So an edit form allows us to connect to a Dataverse table or a table from any source. In this case, we'll be using Dataverse to create records for that table, or to basically set you up with a outline for creating records for that table. So the data source here is going to be idea submissions, since that is the table. And the default mode is going to be new because we're not going to be editing an existing idea submission. We're going to be creating new ones. And then I'm going to choose the fields that we're going to bring in. So we need the how will this help field, the description field, and the title. So we'll add those here. And let's go ahead and put them in the order that we want. So we want the title first, then the description, then how will this help? And we'll just go ahead and reduce this to being one column. So now we have our form for submitting an idea. And now we're going to add a button that will actually let them do the submission. Button a little bit bigger. Just put it right there. And say submit. Okay. One of the first things we want to do is make it so that these things are being filled in before the button is available. So I'm going to go to the display mode of the button. This is what's defining whether the button can be pressed or not, essentially. And we're just going to do a quick little if statement to decide whether or not the button can be pressed. In this case, we are going to say, as long as all of these contain data, then it can be pressed. We will say, as long as all of these are not blank, so we'll say data card value 1, which is how will this help? And then data card value 2 will be the other one. And we'll just go through those really quick. Okay. So as long as all of those are not blank, then the display mode will be edit, which means it can be pressed. Otherwise, it will be disabled, so it can't, right? And so you can see here now, I can't do anything with this button. It's grayed out because I haven't put anything in here. But just to play the app and test it, I'll say yes. Now the button shows up. So that works as expected. So now we just need to make it so that when we press this button, it will actually put our idea data into the system. So to start, we want to make sure that we are figuring out who the user is that's using the app. So I'm going to go to the app object here, and in the onStart property, I'm going to basically figure out who the user is. So I'm going to use the set function to set a variable that is called useRec. And in order to do that, I'm going to look up on the user table that I added earlier. And we are going to say that you're finding the user where their primary email is equal to the user that is currently accessing this app and their email. Okay. So as long as the person who's using the app exists with their email and Dataverse, i.e. CRM for the existing HR app, then it will tie them here. So now when I press the submit button, I can tell it what I want it to do. So we'll say on select, we're going to do the patch. The patch is how you actually write rows into a table. And the source of that is going to be the idea submissions table. And since we're creating a new record, we're going to use the defaults function, which is its way of knowing that you're creating a new record of this type. And then we're going to identify the actual values. We can look here to see what columns we have. So we know what we need: a title and we need a description. And we want to do how will this help? And then we also want to tie the owner to the person who submitted it. So starting with the owner, and we will use the useRec variable identified earlier. And then for the title, we will use the idea title that we have here. So that's data card value 3, more specifically the text of data card value 3. And then we can do the description, which will be data card value 2. And then we will do the how will this help, data card value 1. All right. So these should be all the things we need to actually create the idea submission. So let's go ahead and test that right now. So go ahead and press the button here. I knew I forgot something. So we will go ahead and start the app. Actually, I'll just do this. You can do a run on start from the editor, and that will actually make it so that it will run anything that is within the onStart property without you actually having to run the app. Now, I press the submit button. I didn't get an error, so that's good. And the Zoom tray is in my way. There we go. So now I see the record that I created in here. So that worked. So now we just need to make this look a little bit more like an app. So let's start with the home screen here. So we know that we need a button that says that they're going to either submit a new idea or a button that says that they want to view their ideas that they've already submitted. So let's go ahead and start with a button over here. And I do not have an eye for design, so forgive me for the fact that this app is not going to look very pretty. So this button will be called Submit Idea. And when we press it, it will just take us to our submission screen. So we'll use the navigate function and submission screen. Now when we press this button, it takes us here. So we have that part. We also want to make sure that after we patch our idea submission in, we clear out this form. So after we're done here, we can do a reset form function. and our form 1 is what we'll reset. Let's also add another screen to the app, and we'll just call it the thank you screen. And we'll just have this, put some big text that says thank you. We'll have that in the center, and there we go. And then we'll add another button to this screen that lets you return home. So we'll just put it down here, make it a little bigger, have it say return home. And when we press it, we will navigate to the home screen. And just to make sure that works, when we press it, it takes us to the home screen. Great. Now we want to make sure that this button takes us to the thank you screen. So after it resets the form, we'll have it navigate to the thank you screen and reset. So let's just get rid of the one that I had already created so that we don't get confused. So now we can walk through this whole app here. I can say, let me just make sure that this has nothing in it before we start. Say, I want to submit an idea. Click submit. It says, thank you for your submission. And I return home. And if I click submit an idea again, it's blank again this time. So now we don't have any duplicates. And if I look, I see the idea that I just submitted. So far, working the way that we want it to. So the last piece that we need here, let me check, 15 minutes, looking good. I'll go ahead and add one more screen, and this will be the screen for reviewing existing submissions. So we'll just let's just rename this one to the thank you screen. And we'll call this new submission screen. And we'll call this one the my submissions screen. So this is where the user will be able to go to see their existing submissions. So to keep this easy, we're just going to go with a table here. So I'm going to do layout and a data table. And we'll just make it about big. And I'll add a text label at the top that just says my submissions. Make it bigger and put it in the, there we go. All right. And looking here, I already have an idea that I've submitted, so we know that our app should see our existing submissions. The data source that we're using here can be a filtered list from a source. As you recall, we already have identified who our user is here. So we can use that in this table to filter the submissions that we see. So we can say we're going to filter idea submissions where the owner is our user rec variable. And now we can see this. So we can update the fields being used here to show the data that we have. But I think that this works for the most part. So we'll just leave it like this for now. We won't worry about the submitted actually because we know that it's only us. So I'm actually going to just remove this one. And I don't really like the way that this one is being formatted. So I'm going to go ahead and just change this format here. So we'll do datetime format short. There we go. And now we just need a button to get here. So we'll add it to the home screen. We'll do a button. We'll at least make it try to line up with this button a little bit. There we go. And we'll have this button say view submissions. And when we press it, we will just navigate to the My Submissions screen. Test that, press it, we end up here. And now we're going to just get a button that will take us back home over here. So I'll just do a icon. So we'll look for a home icon. And I'll just put it up here in this corner. And on select, we will navigate. All right. So now let's test the app out fully. We'll start from the home screen. I can view an existing submission. I can submit a new idea. And I can go ahead and I can press submit. It says, thank you for your submission. I can return home and I can view my submissions. And there it is. That covers us having an app that will allow users to submit a new idea and view their existing ideas. And they all end up in this existing Dataverse table for HR to work with. And we did that in 22 minutes. We actually came in under. And I think that's about it for my quick walkthrough. Oh, you're right. You're right. So we're going to add the Contoso logo here. And we can just right here.
All right.
And now it's branded.